You know those days where your mind just won't shut off? It feels like it's running a marathon, right? You're spending hours, literally hours, picking apart a two-word text message, or you're replaying some random conversation from yesterday, or maybe you're building backup plans for your backup plans. If that sounds like you, then people have probably called you an overthinker. But today, we're going to dig into a totally different and honestly a much more powerful idea.
What if the problem isn't how much you're thinking, but how little you're trusting yourself? I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This one sentence completely reframes the entire issue. It suggests that all that constant mental noise, well, that's not the actual disease. It's just a symptom of something way, way deeper.
So let's just ask the question head on. What if that label, overthinker, is just a convenient but totally wrong name for a completely different struggle? A struggle that has nothing to do with your thoughts, but everything to do with your faith in your own judgment, your own resilience, and your own intuition.
Okay, so let's get past that surface level idea of overthinking and drill down to the real root cause. What we're really talking about here is a lack of what you might call inner authority. You know, that quiet, steady voice inside that just knows you can handle whatever life throws at you. You know, it's wild how much our environment has actually created this problem. Just look at these two columns. On the left, you have then. Think of a time with more unsupervised freedom. You just had to figure things out for yourself, and in doing that, you built up this natural self-reliance. But now, look at the now column. A lot of us are dealing with choice overload. There are so many options for everything that it's completely paralyzing. We're terrified of making the wrong choice, and that leads to this avoidance behavior, where doing nothing at all feels way safer than picking a path and risking regret. So this whole under-trusting thing, it's not a one-size-fits-all problem. It actually shows up in a few pretty distinct ways, and we can think of them as three different archetypes. As we go through them, just see if one of them feels a little familiar. First up, we've got the social investigator. This is the person whose doubt is all pointed outward. They're constantly scanning their social world, looking for clues about where they fit in. Come on, does this sound like anyone you know? Turning a simple text message into a full-on Netflix documentary, complete with twists and hidden meanings? The investigator is on this constant hunt for what our source material calls social confirmation of presence. They're just looking for proof that they exist, that they matter to other people. And that right there, that's the heart of it. This endless detective work isn't really about figuring other people out. It's a fight against this deep, sinking feeling of being invisible. All that analysis is really just a desperate attempt to prove to yourself that you are seen. Okay, let's move on to our second type. This is the scenario architect. For this person, the doubt isn't focused on the past. Oh no. It's focused on every single possible and usually disastrous future. The architect is always living in the future, running these nonstop disaster simulations in their head. They feel this intense need to control their time and their energy because any kind of uncertainty just feels incredibly dangerous. And a lot of times, this comes from having to grow up way too fast as a kid, learning early on that you had to see problems coming just to feel safe. And that's the key thing to understand. The architect isn't just a pessimist, they're a protector. All that constant planning is a defense mechanism, and it's built on this core belief that the world is just not a safe place, and they have to be the one to protect their inner world from all of it. All right, and that brings us to our third and final archetype, the research perfectionist. This is where that doubt shows up as a total, complete paralysis of action. You know this person, right? The one who will spend 3 hours researching the absolute best productivity app instead of just, doing the work. They're terrified of committing to a single path because that means closing other doors. Now, people might mistake this for laziness, but it's the total opposite. It's an immense cognitive load. Their brain is just burning through fuel, completely stuck, paralyzed by the weight of trying to find the one perfect, risk-free choice. And this right here is the profound truth hiding behind the perfectionists in action. The fear isn't just about making the wrong choice. The deeper, real fear is that if they make a mistake, they won't be able to handle it. They don't trust their own resilience, their ability to bend without completely breaking. Okay, so we've laid out the problem. We have the investigator, the architect, and the perfectionist. So what now? How do we actually move forward? Well, the solution is all about reclaiming that inner authority we mentioned at the start. Now, to really get the fix, we first have to understand why these thought loops are so darn powerful. It's all because of a psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect. You know how a catchy song you only heard half of gets stuck in your head on an endless loop? That's the Zeigarnik effect in action.
Your brain keeps all these unfinished tasks, like an unresolved worry or decision you haven't made, front and center, and they just drain your mental energy because your mind can't file them away as done. And that is exactly why you can't just outthink this problem. Trying to think your way out of undertrusting is kind of like trying to dry yourself off while you're still standing in the shower. It just doesn't work. The real solution needs a total shift in your approach. You don't need a better plan, you just need to start trusting yourself. So, what does that actually look like? Well, there's this really powerful tool called the let them theory. It's about making a conscious choice to release your grip on trying to control what other people think and do. It's like a quiet little rebellion. So, if people misunderstand you, let them. If they judge you or if they don't invite you to the party, let them. You stop wasting all your precious energy trying to manage their version of reality, and you start putting that energy back where it belongs. On you. This isn't about not caring, it's about redirecting your focus. And when you start letting them, you begin to build this incredible new skill, delayed response processing. Instead of having that knee-jerk reaction from a place of fear, like the investigator's frantic search for answers or the architect's need for control, you learn to just pause. You create this little space between the thing that triggers you and your response. And in that space, you can breathe, you can actually analyze the situation, and most importantly, you can connect with that inner authority and trust that your own measured response is the right one for you. You're moving from automatic reaction to intentional action. So what happens when you make this shift? Well, you just start moving through life in a totally new way. The goal isn't to avoid every single possible problem anymore. The goal is to become the kind of person who can handle problems as they come up, calm, capable, and unshaken. And this is such a powerful distinction. That old mindset of overanalyzing and over-preparing everything, that's a survival mechanism. Sure, it keeps you safe, but it doesn't make you feel whole. Wholeness, that comes from trust. It doesn't come from the constant, exhausting work of being in survival mode. And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. The security you're really looking for isn't going to be found in a perfect plan or some guaranteed outcome. Real, lasting security comes from a deep internal trust that no matter what happens, you have the strength and the smarts to handle it. So as we wrap this up, I'm just going to leave you with this question to think about. When you look at those three faces of doubt, which one feels the most familiar? The social investigator, the scenario architect, or the research perfectionist? Just figuring out your pattern, that's the very first step toward reclaiming your trust and totally rewriting your story.